Shalom, this is Levi Shore. Welcome back to Sweet Good Torah. We have Rabbi Mordecai Darwish of the Gates of Mordecai. We're going to learn something very exciting today. We're continuing with Rabbi Chaim Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, the Ramchal Das Tavuna, and Knowing God's Plan. We're learning something very interesting today. The revelation of Hashem's oneness can come about in two different ways. All right, let me start it off here. So the rabbi is teaching. He's saying, in reality, people could bring about this revelation through the merit of their own actions. They could recognize the truth and abandon the false ways of this world through their desire to come close to Hashem. They would have to come to the clear realization that anything contradicting the path Hashem has commanded is part of the evil that he chose to create through the concealment of his perfect goodness. So they would then reject the deceptive illusions of this world and choose to draw themselves close to the hidden and concealed light, the life-giving light of the presence of Hashem. All right, what do you think?
Yeah, right, exactly. Like if we choose to follow his commandments and the way he told us to live life, then the illusion of this world doesn't tempt us, and then we merit to have his light, and then understanding what's going on in the world, as opposed to the darkness and confusion.
Yeah, no, and I think that's what's really holding us back right now. We're in this time of there's a lot of deception. There's been a lot of false teachings for a long time, and people are really confused. I don't think most of the Jewish people or a lot of the Jewish people really know the Torah so well because they brought up in kind of secular schools, and we don't have that advantage. So when we have the light of the Torah, then everything's clarified. We can see exactly what's true, exactly what's false. But we're in this darkness and confusion right now. So if we want that connection back to Hashem, then it starts. The redemption starts. The Geulah starts. But we need to have that desire. That's one way.
Yeah.
And so he's going to go on here. He's saying, if they would do all this, the revelation of Hashem's oneness, of God's oneness, will be brought about by their own actions. And they would hasten the ultimate redemption, the Geulah. Hashem would then have no need to reveal his oneness through the travails of a prolonged exile, since they would have recognized the truth for themselves. That would be enough. The truth would now be clear. Having experienced evil and recognizing it for what it is, and having made the decision to separate themselves from it and attach themselves to Hashem's true oneness, they would have done everything necessary. This is because the whole purpose of creation is only that people should come to recognize the truth of these matters with absolute clarity. As a result, they would have delighted from then on in the experience of the true reality that had been revealed to them. Once all this had been revealed to them, nothing else would be necessary.
Yeah, exactly. It's the first couple, Adam and Eve, right? Adam and Chava, they ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So good and evil are intertwined in all of reality. So now, we can either merit to see the good in everything by going on the path of good, or we can, we have to have all the travails of life, and until we recognize that everything is just one. And we can either do it ourselves, our own doing, right? And that is really the whole goal of reality, to understand that there's one creator and one thing that binds everything together, and do it ourselves, or we can have to reveal it to us through a prolonged, like you said, a prolonged exile and all the problems that we have in the world.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the greatest examples of this, if we can point to current events, I mean, the attack on October 7th, we see evil. We see the evil of Hamas. We see the murder and the violation, of women and men, and it's just horrible. And we don't want to be anything like that. We want to completely reject it. But I think the one thing that's missing is this getting fed up with it. It's we don't need to put up with this anymore. We attach ourselves to Hashem, this infinite being. Nothing can hurt us anymore. Nothing can keep doing this to us. And it's that awakening, to be just done with. And that's what happened to us in Egypt. The new Pharaoh is just as bad as the old Pharaoh. We don't want to do this anymore. We don't need to do this anymore. We're attached to Hashem, nothing can stop the power of the infinite creator, and we just have to be sick of dealing with this evil. And so,
Right.
let's go on here. So we'll go back to the beginning. So he says, note that this was the situation of Adam, as I will explain. It is important for you to understand this matter properly. Had Hashem created a world that was totally good, without any evil whatsoever, the human mind could not have had any conception of evil. As a result, it would have been impossible to understand Hashem's oneness in its total sense. As I explained above, however, once Hashem created a world that included evil, the human mind was certainly able to have a conceptual awareness of evil, and through this to recognize the true nature of Hashem's oneness. Adam already knew about the existence of evil. This was the tree of knowledge of good and evil, which Hashem forbade him to eat from. Despite this, he was deceived into thinking that it was something desirable to look at and good to eat, and attractive as a means of gaining knowledge. As it says in the verse, the woman saw that the tree was good to eat and desirable to the eyes. We see that Adam was already aware that there was the possibility of making a mistake, chas v'shalom, God forbid, and falling prey to the notion that there are two competing powers that rule the world, or to any of the other false ideas that the snake suggested to them.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's two. We're obsessed with knowledge. All of us are obsessed with knowledge. We love it, right? Why do we love it? Because it's something that I don't know. It's something inherent in us from our predecessor Adam, right? That there's a thirst for knowledge, and so it's embedded in all of us that we have this thirst of knowledge. But the problem is that now good and evil are intertwined, and so this thirst of knowledge takes us into some dark places sometimes, and that's not where we want to be. We want to be on the light side, the good side of things.
Yeah. Yeah, no, everything could be like used like for the good or evil. Like to me, like this, I'll give you an example. Like this company that Elon Musk has, Neuralink. To me, it's kind of like outrageous. Like why would you want to put like computer parts in your brain? So like to the side of good, like okay, if it could really help someone, let's say like someone that was, didn't have really use of their arms or legs, and if it really can give that ability back to them, then that technology could be used for good. But if I could see so many ways it could be corrupting, like controlling people, or this, it could be used for bad. So it's like, it's not purely, there's nothing right now, that knowledge is not purely good or bad. Only, right, only the wisdom, the knowledge from the Torah, do we know it's completely good, right? There's not gonna be any bad element to it. If we follow the mitzvos, it's gonna be completely good. But now there's other kinds of knowledge in the world, right, where it can be used for good, it can be used for bad, so it's more
Right.
dangerous. Yeah. Right, so now Adam was extremely wise, and he should have used his wisdom to evaluate the situation properly. In fact, his wisdom already enabled him to see the truth on a conceptual level. He knew that anything contradicting the true path of perfection that Hashem had shown him was false and deceitful. It was just part of the evil Hashem created in order to reveal his absolute oneness and to test man so as to give him reward.
Right. Evil's only there so we could reject it, right? And then you actually did something. You actually chose good, so you actually, get rewarded for it, right? As opposed to just, okay, I'm just going to create you in order to just feed you and give you good.
Yeah. All right, so we'll go on here a little more, but it is deceptive. We live in a time it's so confusing, like to perceive the truth clearly, and that's the problem. Like there's a lot of things that are bad for us, and unless we see it clearly in the vision of the Torah, we can be deceived a lot. Oh, this, I really want this, but it can be very destructive to us unless we see clearly like what's good for us, what's bad for us. So, did you want to say more? Or?
I was going to say anything that obscures the realization of oneness is bad for us. Anything, it could be like quote unquote permitted within the Torah, like eating kosher food or something, but you eat too much of it, right? You become heavy, sluggish, your mind shuts down, right? So it's obscuring the oneness,
Yeah.
and you don't want that, right? So anything in the world that obscures the oneness, that everything's connected and everything's from God, that whole ideology is bad. It could be like the seemingly your financial advisor, right? He's making you make a lot more money than you ever dreamed of, right? And you're like, oh, that's great. Now I don't have to work. I have my mind free. But yeah, you could, have your mind free, but you could also use that for doing destructive and stupid things and wasting your life away.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's being able to use everything correctly. Like whatever we're given, if we can use it correctly, use it for the good, then it has a positive result. All right, so he goes on, he says, had he withstood the test and actually strengthened his amuna, his faith, rather than allowing himself to be deceived by the negative inclination, the Yetzer Hara, he would have attained the true understanding of Hashem's absolute oneness. He had already seen what evil was and gained a conceptual awareness of it. Through his wisdom, he also realized that all evil was created by Hashem only as a means to reveal his glory. All he needed to do was to strengthen his amuna, strengthen his faith, and not disobey Hashem's command. And even that was only until the onset of Shabbos, as our Chachamim, our sages, have told us. Then Hashem would have brought about in one day what in the end would take 6,000 years of history to achieve. Hashem would have removed all evil from the world in one brief moment, and Adam would have experienced the absolute truth of Hashem's oneness, something he had believed until that point through Amunah alone.
All right. So instead of what would have taken a few hours to achieve, is now spread out through 6,000 years of history, which is great for us. I mean, like, because we get to understand, like, what's the whole purpose of the world? What's the purpose of these 6,000 years? Right? Some people just want to be left alone, and enjoy the world and have fun. But that's not the purpose of the world. The purpose of the world is to realize God's oneness. And so they go through life and just like they waste it. They just seek comfort or they seek pleasures all day long. And sometimes the reality works out for them, but for very few people that's actually like they actually live a good life from birth to death. Everybody has trials, everybody has tribulations and
Yeah.
pains and sufferings and all that stuff, and they don't understand what they're doing it for. And here the Ramchal is revealing to us the whole purpose was that man should realize God's the one true power in the world, and there is no other, right? The absolute oneness of God. So now we have 6,000 years, and that is really the whole purpose of history, which is, one of my rabbis used to say, his story, right? God's story, the revelation of his oneness. I think it's
Yeah,
pretty
no,
cool.
that's nice. No, it's very easy to get lost. I mean, because we're surrounded, by an influence that's very different from the Torah, and we start, wanting to be like everyone else. And if if you're not raised like with the Torah, it's strange. Like Hashem, our God, who we've had this close relationship with 4,000 years, can seem very distant from us. The Torah, it can seem very distant from a lot of Jewish people. It's very, I mean, what's more Jewish than the Torah itself? And how can that ever feel distant? How can what's crazy is like if you don't grow up like experiencing Shabbat, Shabbat can seem very distant, from a Jewish person. It's easy to get lost. Like unless, you
Right.
experience right the truth and the beauty of the Torah, it's easy to get lost. Like, yeah, it's
Yeah, for
very,
sure. If you think life is all about like this one big party, one big ride, then any restrictions on it seemingly, is not fun.
yeah,
So why would you want to restrict your diet, right? Why would you want to restrict your life? And because but because you don't have an ultimate purpose, right? You think the ultimate purpose is just to enjoy yourself, right? So you want that unbridled ability to enjoy yourself, right? And someone says, no, hey, on this day you don't do any work, and on this day, and this you can only eat these things, and you can't eat those things, and you can't speak this things, and you have to speak this way, and you have to conduct business this way, and your whole life is quote unquote restricted instead of guided,
yeah,
right? And for no ultimate purpose, right? It goes contradictory to the whole purpose of pleasure and enjoying and unbridledness and do what art thou will, right? Whatever they
yeah,
say. right? Then everything seems contradictory as opposed to, there's a purpose. Everything I do is for the creator, meaning because the creator told me to, in order that I beat this game and to reveal his oneness, which is the ultimate purpose of these 6,000 years.
Yeah. No, and sometimes you got to stop. Like to experience Shabbos, right? You got to make some food beforehand. You got to turn off the phone, turn off the computer, not go running around now. But then all of a sudden now you experience something you've never experienced before. Like you have to kind of like, take the path that Hashem's like laying out, and then you'll find you might gain something that you never had before. You know,
Yeah, you
yeah,
might, but the whole purpose is to reveal his oneness,
yeah,
right? It's not for your pleasure. There's actually Gemara that says that the mitzvahs weren't given for our pleasure, right? Sometimes they're tough, sometimes they're hard, right? It's like lifting weights. Lifting the 100-pound weight in the gym is hard, it's tough, but it's going to build your muscles because it tore you down, right? Tore
yeah,
down, quote unquote, your ego, right?
yeah,
And once the ego is that's what distances us from God is our ego. Once our ego is gone, then we can have the revelation. As it says in the Gemara, it says that a person who has an ego, me and him can't live in the same place, right? Well, we know God fills all the world, right, and He's everywhere. So what does it mean? The person with an ego doesn't, I can't be in the same place as Him. It means it's like He doesn't let me in, right? He's blocking me off some way. So following rules tears down a person's ego, and we live in an egotistical society. It's a me, iPhone, I generation, right? It's all about the person themselves. So a lot of people find this very difficult to accept, hard pill to swallow.
yeah. No, it's a good point. There's a spiritual workout also that starts making a person much stronger, like until right, they have to break down like the ego. Yeah. I so, but right in right in the beginning, Adam was seduced by his desires and cravings. He therefore created distorted ideas for himself in order to justify what he wanted to do. This is similar to the statement of our sages. The Jewish people only became involved in idol worship in order to allow themselves to openly engage in forbidden relations. Indeed, the sages say Adam ended up denying the oneness of Hashem. And
Right,
that's very
exactly.
tricky. Yeah,
That's amazing. That's the greatest thing in the world. Oh, there's no God. There's no. Let's service
yeah,
idol, this golden calf, right? Why? Why did they do that? So then they can go after their pleasures, right? That's what society has become. It's like let's cast off God. Let's become quote unquote secular, so we can just do whatever we want. We can just enjoy any pleasure we want,
yeah. No, and I
right?
think right, yeah, and I think unfortunately, right, that's what we're being exposed to. We're surrounded with, right? This like do whatever you want, but like what we don't realize at the beginning, like it seems very attractive, but then you start to lose more than you're gaining. It's very empty. No, people can experience it becomes very empty, and there's not the meaning.
Well, then the
I,
credit card bill comes,
yeah,
right? You got to pay up with
no, I
interest.
think I think the best way to describe it in some ways is like what a deep down, like what is a person like what is one of the greatest desires a person really has? Like a person wants to connect, with someone else. They want to be able to love, like, a man wants to be able to love a woman and have her love him and have this deep, deep connection. And that deep connection, that then gives us an idea of our connection with Hashem. But unfortunately, like people become like depressed or they don't have it or it's not working and they'll do a cheap substitute to try to fill in and substitute for that deep connection. And that's like this chasing after like the pleasures but it's kind of empty. It's like it's short term, it's empty. It's not that deep loving connection that everyone craves. It becomes this short term, like
Right.
substitute.
It's become that's the purpose of their life. They're no different than the animal,
Yeah.
right? Instead of understanding that they have like a godly soul in them, and there's a different purpose, right? And the pleasures are to be utilized, not to be abused.
Yeah. All right. So let's see. So as a result of Adam's sin, it became necessary for him to personally experience what he did not want to grasp through knowledge. This would
Well,
involve experiencing through the course of human history the reality of evil itself and seeing how, in the end, it makes way for the total domination of Hashem's goodness. even though it had previously been allowed to wreak such havoc and destruction. This would be through the travails and difficulties of this world that were decreed on Adam. In this way, man would eventually attain the faith, the emunah, that he was unwilling to achieve at first. However, now he would have to arrive at this understanding through the direct experience of each aspect of evil, whereas Adam could have grasped the whole thing with total clarity all at once.
Oh, that's amazing. So it's basically like you can either learn about this world through the Torah, through your knowledge, through your mind, right? And then you can distinguish between the good and evil, or you could go out there in the world and experience it, and actually have to taste the difference between good and evil.
Yeah.
And it's much easier to experience it in your mind, right? As opposed to go out and, all the hardships in this world, whatever it is, or you have to
Yeah.
work, daily grind, right? Or you have to follow, Hashem, get the diseases, right? And understand whether it's good or bad. And well, all the problems in the world, whether they're financial, whether they're physical, whether they're emotional, all that stuff. But Adam chose to get it, experientially. And we
Yeah.
come along and say, no, listen, it's much better to get it, mentally as opposed to experientially.
Yeah. No, if
I've
we
heard
read
that.
if we read the instructions, if we read the Torah, it's like this is what you should do, this is what you shouldn't do. And then unfortunately, like sometimes we have to figure out what we shouldn't do and experience it. And it's not pleasant. It's not fun.
But the whole purpose is to distinguish between good and evil, right?
Yeah.
It's not for no reason you're experiencing the pain,
Yeah.
right, or experiencing the hardship. It's so you experience that there is oneness, and you chose darkness over the oneness, and
Yeah.
now that has to be separated, and that's what the pain is. The pain is, helping you realize of the oneness.
Yeah. It's not fun. So let's see. So the same was true for Adam's descendants as well. Had they wanted to grasp the truth of Hashem's absolute oneness and use their wisdom to make this knowledge part of their very being, that would have been enough. All that was needed was for them to come to this realization. Once it would have been clear to them, nothing else would have been necessary. But they did not manage to bring this about through their own actions. Instead, they followed deceptive, superficial falsehood and accepted all those evil ideologies I mentioned above. Therefore, Hashem must reveal to them what they were unable to grasp through their own knowledge. He does this by hiding his presence more and more until evil predominates in the world to the ultimate extent, just as we see now in our present exile. So, this is what our sages referred to when they said, there is no day whose curse is not greater than the previous one. But in the end, the one master will suddenly enter his palace, and his glory will be revealed before the entire world.
Uh, and this is what I tell people all the time. It's going to get a lot darker before the light comes, right? Just like in the world, right? It's always darkest before the dawn, right? Same thing. That's what happens because people they chose this path. We choose this path constantly all the time. So because of that, the darkness is going to go on to multiply and multiply before the light comes.
But what the Ramchal is saying is it doesn't have to.
No, it doesn't have to.
If
But
we
that's
if,
that's the
no,
that's
it
the
does
course.
no, if we see the true path by learning the Torah, then it doesn't have to get that dark. Unfortunately,
Right.
when we're not, right, then we have to experience the darkness. So we say, no, this is not what we choose. We don't want this. So it doesn't have to, right? But unfortunately, it seems that we're stumbling into it a little bit here and there.
Yeah, the more secular we become, the more on the other side, the more physical we become. Even if we're religious, but we do it, in a physical manner,
Yeah.
then that's what we're going to experience.
Yeah. So now that Hashem's presence is so greatly hidden from the world, attitudes have become totally distorted, and man's actions have become corrupt. As a result, the world itself has become damaged and lessened in stature. That is what our sages meant when they said, the original superior taste of fruit has been taken away. We are witnessing with our own eyes all the other terrible things that our sages told us about. The world is desolate and void. In fulfillment of the words of the sages, insolence will abound. There'll be a lot of chutzpah. It says chutzpah yiska, v'yoker yamir, and people will crave for honor. Wisdom will be like people will not want wisdom anymore. Those who fear sin will be despised, and the truth will disappear. And we're really experiencing this like to a great extent. And it's interesting here. Sometimes they translate it here as people will crave for honor. It says
Right. Instead of
v'yoker yamir. So what's so interesting about that is translated a lot of times as inflation.
right.
But so it's interesting. So people, because people want so much honor, they want all the expensive things, all the luxury things for themselves. And this could be the root of like what's causing everything to be so expensive, because if you don't want the basic things anymore, you just, everything has to be gourmet, luxury, and everything becomes incredibly expensive.
Right, that's what I said. The taste of fruit diminishes, so you're seeking that taste of the fruit. So what do? You substitute it with something else, and that something else is going to cost more, and it costs more. So it's basically the people are chasing the world, and the world is degrading.
Hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Nobody seeks knowledge. Right? No, people aren't seeking knowledge in order
No.
to how to circumvent this route. Right? So that's the knowledge is decreasing. Right? So we know through Kabbalah. Right? There's you have the three upper spherot, right? And they represent your mind, and you have the seven lower spheres that represent the body. Seven outweighs the three, right? So if you let it, if you shut down the three, then the seven is going to drag down the three.
Hmm.
But the three have the power to uplift the seven,
Yeah.
right? So if you chase wisdom, then the physical won't bother you as much. But if you shut off the wisdom, then the physical will carry everything
Yeah.
along with.
No, I mean we see it so clearly, right? So the higher three sephiros are the mind and wisdom. So a person that's seeking wisdom, he has his mind control his seven lower emotions. But the person that's only going by their emotions, then the emotions override all logic or all intelligence or all wisdom. And
Right.
unfortunately, like we see this a lot, right? It's all about emotions and likes and who's
Oh
who's
yeah.
inter who's entertaining, not who can teach me some wisdom, but who can entertain me. Who's just going to entertain me? Yeah.
He speaks so well. He's so well spoken, right? That's
Yeah.
what people want to hear when
Yeah.
you're well spoken people instead of wisdom.
Yeah.
Actually,
Yeah. No, great
it's
speaker. I didn't learn
great
anything.
speaker. He's a great speaker. He's wonderful. Like I tune in to hear him speak. Like they enjoy it, right? It's music to
Yeah.
their ears. So, but knowledge is rejected, and so that's what we get. We get people following their whims, and don't deny your feelings and just go after them. And really, really, that's what the Rambam calls the halachas of proper character traits. He calls it ilchot deot,
Hmm.
the halachas of knowledge, the halachas of like opinions, like right, because after your mind will go your body. And I heard
Yeah.
once that the man is created upright, right? So the mind is supposed to rule over the body, where the animals are not upright, right? Their mind is on the level of their bodies.
Mm. Yeah.
We're supposed to act like humans and not animals.
Yeah. Very nice. I said, but when the time comes for Hashem's glory to be revealed, proper attitudes will return. People's actions will be corrected, and they will be drawn close to Hashem. As it says, I will pour my spirit, my ruach of wisdom and truth upon all people. One will no longer need to teach another about Hashem's existence because everyone will know me, young and old alike.
Oh,
The whole world will long to elevate themselves through attachment to Hashem's holiness. As it says, many nations will go to each other and say, let us go up to Hashem's mountain, the Temple Mount, the Har HaBayis in Jerusalem, the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, and he will teach us about his ways so we can follow his paths. The entire natural world will be greatly enhanced and transformed by all this. As it says, loaves of bread will grow on the mountaintops. The wolf will dwell with the lamb, and the leopard will lie down with the kid.
exactly. Yeah, that's what we're seeking. We're waiting for this time where knowledge will increase, and everybody will be the whole purpose of all the people on the lands of the earth will be to seek out God. And as long as it's not, we're in this exile. We're in this dark, dark, quote unquote, dark ages. And
Yeah.
so, you know what I mean? That's why I tell people, like, you know, we've had this debate over the years. It's like, we're not even close. Like, as long as, you know, the wisdom isn't increased and people aren't chasing after wisdom in order to seek godliness and oneness, then we're very, very far away. We won't even have to tell each other, hey, why don't you come and learn about God, right? Because that's what people will be drawn to. That's what people will want to. And
Yeah.
if we're not there yet, we're
Well,
very, very
I
close.
mean, we don't know when the switch is going to be turned. It can happen in any moment. I mean, by your argument also, if we're really at the lowest level, then that's when. Then that's the
Right,
darkness before the
yeah, yeah,
dawn.
for
Okay.
sure.
We don't
If we
really
have
know when.
time,
I mean,
it could be
okay,
any
so
time. But the idea is that, you know, man will chase after God and not, you know, the
right, no,
physical.
after the switch, right after Hashem sends Mashiach and the Gula, that right then it's going to change, right, and then Hashem's going to help people by giving them a ruach of chakma, giving them a spirit of wisdom that's going to make all of us want to learn more, So it's
Exactly.
interesting,
It'll be natural.
yeah. Right. So unfortunately, right, the natural way, it's a good point. The natural way right now, unfortunately, is like people are not so interested in learning. And they just want to be entertained. So it's an interesting footnote here. It says, when the base of Mikdash, when the temple stood and Hashem's presence was more revealed in the world, the entire nature and quality of existence was more elevated. Even the fruits were of a totally different nature. After its destruction, evil and ignorance increased, causing the quality of existence to deteriorate and the fruits of the earth to become inferior.
Exactly. And maybe we should end on this, but yeah, we are the light of the world, right? We're supposed to be the light onto nations. What does that actually mean? It means that we draw down the light and we perfect creation in order to make everything good once again. And as long as, you know, we're exiled and we don't have a temple, and we don't have the ability to actually, you know, use our traits and use our God-given ability, then the world is in despair and in darkness.
Yeah. So I mean, one thing we do control is, right, we may be in this gullus, in this exile, and it may be a time of the spiritual darkness, but we don't have to be a part of that. All we need is like the desire that we want to learn. Like just the desire that we want to learn the Torah. Just learning it the best we can. That starts to bring about that change. That just we need to want to learn it.
Yeah,
We got to get sick of this darkness, sick of the evil of the world, and want to bring the light of the Torah into the world. I,
absolutely.
that's all we have for today. So, if you guys enjoyed it, please like, share, subscribe, help us out on the Gates of Mordechai and Sweet Good Torah. We'll continue our journey, learning, God's plan and a lot of other subjects, and we hope to see you guys back soon. All the best.